This video here is just this is like a redo of a video I did yesterday, but it was stalled with I was delayed finding Wesley Turnbull's name in the Black Book, but I have the specific page, and there are a few technical difficulties. But I just want to highlight another key Vatican connection to Jeffrey Epstein. And just no one in the alternative media, the supposed alternative media, is bringing up Jeffrey Epstein's overwhelming connections to the Vatican and the papacy. You got the photo of Jeffrey Epstein with Pope John Paul II. Yeah, let me see if I'll pull this up here. This, you can. This is on the internet. Pope John Paul II. But no one seems to connect this with Jeffrey Epstein. Here's the photo here. This was in Epstein's Palm Beach house. There's the photo, and then look, Epstein was with the little Jesuit Fidel Castro. Like, are you kidding me? Fidel Castro went to 3 Jesuit schools. Like, he confesses like 2 Jesuit. Like, the Irish Times did an article. Fidel Castro confesses to Jesuit ethics. Reinhard Gehlen, a Nazi turned Knight of Malta, even admits in his memoirs, though, that the only reason the United States allowed Castro to come to power was because of his Jesuit schooling. Like, the entire, just read the book, great book by Haynes Johnson, The Bay of Pigs, written in 1964. You'll see how much of a shit show the Bay of Pigs was. It was completely designed to fail. The guy the CIA picked to lead the Bay of Pigs invasion, Manuel Artime, was educated by the Jesuits, just like Fidel Castro. I control both sides. But here's Epstein with the Pope, and this is Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's girlfriend. But like, no one seems to bring this up. And there's also this, where was this link here? I had it up. Catholic Charities. Actually, this is just quickly shout out to Jeremy. This good viewer on my channel sends me great links that lots of them I archive. He sent me this Breitbart link. This just ties into the video I showed of Greta Thunberg speaking about meeting the Jesuit Pope Francis, and she says, "Oh, it just happens to be a coincidence that our school strike is on the anniversary of Laudato Si," which is Pope Francis's encyclical, his quote climate change encyclical. But just showing you more of how much of a Jesuit puppet she is, the Catholic Maryknoll missionaries compared Greta Thunberg to the Virgin Mary on their Twitter account. You can see that right here, September 23rd, 2019. See? Literally comparing her to the Virgin. As Avram Manhattan said, do not underestimate the Catholic Church's ability to get people into all sorts of superstition. But this was a connection here. So this was, Johnny sent me this link. This was a great link here. This is from, I think, the PR Newswire. But you see, Epstein has overwhelming connections to the Catholic Church that none of the shills bring up. You see, Jeffrey Epstein, science activist, backs the largest Catholic organization in the U.S. Virgin Islands. The Catholic Charities of the U.S. Virgin Islands receives vital funding from investor and science philanthropist Jeffrey Epstein. The Jeffrey Epstein 6 Foundation has donated, quote, critical funds to the Catholic Charities of the U.S. Virgin Islands. Catholic Charities of the U.S. Virgin Islands is the largest Catholic organization in the U.S. Virgin Islands, providing, quote, essential support for the poor. For 46 years, the Catholic Charities of the Virgin Islands has been feeding the hungry, sheltering the homeless, and clothing the needy. Catholic Charities Virgin Islands offers a wide spectrum of services to struggling families and individuals, including the homeless, the mentally ill, substance abusers, and homebound elderly. Especially these three, like the homeless, mentally ill, and substance abusers, were the exact same target demographic that Jeffrey Epstein, the pedophile, was targeting. The exact same demographic. He probably got lots of advice and guidance from Catholic Charities. But Catholic Charities Virgin Islands also provides an impressive volume of support. Just last year, they assisted more than 700 people, served more than, okay, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but I'm just going to read you here. The Jeffrey Epstein 6 Foundation was founded by science philanthropist and education activist Jeffrey Epstein in 2000. Jeffrey Epstein is a resident of St. Thomas in the U.S. Virgin Islands. I'm going to show you that Jeffrey, it's very interesting because this Catholic connection that I'm highlighting in this video, Flavio Briatore, a devout Roman Catholic Italian businessman, who is actually wanted for fraud and extortion and related to fixing races in the Formula One circuit. This guy was like Michael Schumacher's like manager, essentially, which is really interesting because when I brought up to my buddy that this guy Flavio Briatore, Catholic, connected to F1, was on the Epstein list, and that this Briatore was connected to Schumacher. He brought up how my buddy's a big F1 fan. He said there's been numerous times where like Michael Schumacher has won races where the guy in front of Schumacher makes kind of like an unexplained pit stop, which then allows Schumacher to pass him and then win the race. And that's actually, I'll show you, that even on the Wikipedia page, this is part of the allegations with the 1994 Formula One cheating controversy. Flavio Briatore is directly involved with that. This guy's on the Epstein list, and this Briatore is also connected to Michelle Sindona, which I'm going to highlight in this video with some detail. But look, while Briatore was wanted from the Italian authorities for rigging Formula One races, he sought asylum in the U.S. Virgin Islands, where Jeffrey Epstein was living. And the governor of the U.S. Virgin Islands who gave Flavio Briatore asylum, the good devout Catholic Flavio Briatore asylum, was Governor Wesley Turnbull, who is on the Jeffrey Epstein list. And I'll show you that. So on page 7 of the Black Book, you see Flavio Briatore. So he's got like 15 entries: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, if I'm counting correctly. 15 to 18 entries. But you can see here on page 55, I'm going to show you like how Flavio Briatore was sought asylum in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and this guy was pardoned by the EU High Court, just like devout Catholic Conrad Black, Knight of St. Gregory the Great, the Canadian media magnate, who has like 29 entries on Epstein's list, was pardoned by the U.S. Court for racketeering charges involving money laundering with this company, Hollinger International. The U.S. Supreme Court actually changed the definition of bribery to get papist Conrad Black, who's connected to Epstein, off of bribery charges. You see here Governor Charles Turnbull of the Virgin Islands. You see Governor of the U.S. Virgin Islands. So this is very interesting that like the Epstein, evidently played a role in getting Flavio Briatore asylum in the U.S. Virgin Islands. But you see like this Catholic or this PS Newswire bulletin even brings up how Jeffrey Epstein is the resident of the St. Thomas and U.S. Virgin Islands. In addition to science research, his foundation actively supports education and youth initiatives across the U.S. Virgin Islands. Jeffrey Epstein was a member of the Council on Foreign Relations as well, which was completely Vatican Jesuit controlled. That's why you had a Catholic priest, Teddy Hesburgh, as like director of the Council on Foreign Relations for like 40 years. Literally 40 years. Teddy Hesburgh was on the council for 40 years, lifetime member, and he was on the board for like 15 years. Theodore Hesburgh, Johnny calls him Father SR-71 Teddy, because he would literally fly around in like military at the SR-71 Blackbirds, all on taxpayer dollars, of course. Teddy Hesburgh was also on the Rockefeller Foundation, Chase National Bank, and it goes on and on. But you see, so Epstein was a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, the New York Academy of Science, and you can see this in the Black Book. Epstein, on David Rockefeller's entry on the Black Book, is a member of the Trilateral Commission. And the Trilateral Commission was co-founded by David Rockefeller and Jesuit-trained Zbigniew Brzezinski. No one seems to bring that up when they're talking about the Trilateral Commission. Like they loop the Trilateral Commission somehow in with the Jews. Amazingly, they pulled that off somehow. When the co-founder of the Trilateral Commission, Zbigniew Brzezinski, was a devout Roman Catholic. Zbigniew Brzezinski's father was close with Pope John Paul II's father. George mentioned that, and that's verifiable. So the Brzezinski family is actually Polish nobility. Like Zbigniew Brzezinski's daughter, Mika Brzezinski, is currently one of went to Jesuit Georgetown. Mika Brzezinski is currently one of the quote big journalists on NBC, and she actually, interestingly, was the first reporter to break the 9/11 story when it happened. And that's a whole other topic in itself. But that just shows the Jesuit intrigue. And you see, Epstein was also on the board of Rockefeller University, which is so. But Jeffrey Epstein, this is a quote from Jeffrey Epstein: "We are honored to support the Catholic Charities of the Virgin Islands." That's a quote from Jeffrey Epstein. "They are one of the most effective organizations in the Caribbean eradicating poverty today." So that's from Epstein's own words there. So Epstein says, "We are honored to support." I'm just going to highlight that so you can see I'm not making it up. "We are honored to support the Catholic Charities of the Virgin Islands," Jeffrey Epstein noted. Okay, so here is Flavio Briatore's. Here's this Catholic character that's very interesting, who's connected to Epstein. I'll show you this here. Briatore was born to a Catholic teacher parents in 1950 in Verzolo, northwest Italy. Briatore failed public school twice before receiving a diploma in land surveying from a local private school. And you see he's connected with Michelle Sindona. His first job was working as a ski instructor. Quote, "I didn't really like skiing," he told Esquire magazine. Quote, "but all girls fancy the ski instructor, so it made sense." All these creeps will do anything to get some pussy. But continuing, later becoming an assistant to Attilio Duto, an owner of the Paramati Vernici paint business, the company would provide Briatore's first brush with the law. Okay, so look at this. So Paramati's previous owner had been Sicily-born banker Michelle Sindona. Would you look at that? Michelle Sindona is at the heart of the P2 Masonic Banco Ambrosiano Institute of Religious Works money laundering scandal in the 1980s. Like Michelle Sindona ultimately was the fall guy, and he was actually poisoned in prison because he started making threats against the Vatican. He said, "I'm going to expose some of you," and he died pretty quick actually after making those threats. But Sindona was a member of the P2 Masonic Lodge, and he was educated by the Jesuits. And I'm going to read you some excerpts from Aber Manhattan's book, The Vatican Billions, Archie Naylor's book, Hot Money, and Penny LaRue's book, In Banks We Trust. Just some quick excerpts on Sindona, because this is interesting. So this is basically Epstein being connected to the Michelle Sindona ring through Flavio Briatore. So Paramati's previous owner had been Paramati's previous owner, and where Flavio Briatore worked at Paramati's Vernici paint. He worked at Paramati's paint business. Paramati's previous owner had been Sicilian mafia financier who laundered heroin proceeds for the infamous Gambino family. Sindona was later poisoned in prison. You look at that. And actually, so it says right here, when Duto was killed himself in a 1979 bomb attack, Paramati collapsed, and Flavio Briatore was charged with fraudulent bankruptcy. He was given a 4.5-year sentence that was subsequently quashed, but not before Briatore had absconded into the safety of the U.S. Virgin Islands, where Jeffrey Epstein lived. And the governor of the Virgin Islands, who gave Flavio Briatore asylum, like I mentioned here, Governor Charles Turnbull, is educated by governor of the Virgin Islands. I don't think this guy was Catholic, although I found an interesting thing. Like Governor Charles Turnbull had, for November 18th, this is in the U.S. Congressional Record, November 18th, 24th, 2001, the U.S. Virgin Islands celebrated the Jose Antonio Jarvis Week, named after the supposed Methodist preacher Jose Antonio Jarvis, who was educated by Catholics his whole life. Here, Jarvis began his formal education at St. Anne's Roman Catholic School in Thomas, which he attended from 5 to 13. During these early years, his teachers discerned him an unusually high mental capacity, great ambition, and a keen interest in a wide range of activities. So it's interesting. Like I don't think that this governor, though, Charles Wesley Turnbull, was openly Catholic, but you see, like he had a week celebration for this Catholic educated ecumenist preacher, which serves the Jesuit agenda. This guy's close to Epstein. He pardoned devout Catholic. Is that no? I would say that looks like Louis Farrakhan. But that's not Louis Farrakhan. There's a photo of him here, Charles Wesley Turnbull. Let me see if there's. Looks like that's him there on the left. Looks he got his portrait at the governor's house and there in the Virgin Islands. There he is there. It looks like Wesley Turnbull. So that's interesting. This guy gave Flavio Briatore asylum in the U.S. Virgin Islands, which is very interesting. But just going back to Sindona, so you see how the company, let's get the name of the Paramati was the name of the company that Flavio Briatore was connected to Michelle Sindona with. Here's a photo of Briatore here. Johnny found another source here saying that he's Catholic. Being born in Italy, Flavio was exposed to Christianity under the Roman Catholic denomination. As he aged, Flavio has remained true to his religious inclination, that being Catholicism. So there you go. You see here, so he was Paramati, where Flavio Briatore worked, was close with Michelle Sindona. So this is just, I'm just going to read some excerpts. I'm going to link these archive.org links in the description after this video. Like the main page, you can like torrent it or get the EPUB or PDF. You see here, this is from the beginning of chapter 28 in Avro's book, The Vatican Billions, page 215. In the 70s, as the Vatican's financial problems multiplied, a man like Michel Sindona, who Flavio Briatore was connected with, and Flavio Briatore is connected to Epstein. Sindona seemed to have been sent by divine providence. Sindona accepted the task with unbounded enthusiasm. He always felt at home whenever dealing with high finances and complicated national and international deals. When Pope Paul VI therefore asked him to help solve the Vatican's current financial impasse, Sindona had no doubts about his ability to do so. The Pope thought likewise. He had already had positive proof of Sindona's magic touch back in 1962 when, as Archbishop of Milan, that being Montini, Giovanni Montini, Pope Paul VI, he had found himself in trouble in connection with the building of an old folks' home. Sindona had volunteered to help with finding the money. He would use his banking connections, he promised, and presto, he presented the delighted Monsignor Montini with $2.5 million. It was a miracle, or more accurately, the work of a financial wizard. Archbishop Montini was impressed, and the two men became friends. The Archbishop's confidence was justified, for although Sindona at this time was hardly known in high ecclesiastical circles in Rome, Monsignor Montini had rightly reckoned that Sindona's skill could and would free the Vatican of its increasing monetary worries. The man's achievements, after all, were there for all to asses. Within the next 2 decades, Sindona had formed and controlled no less than 22 international companies, all interlocking with such a complicated financial maze that nobody appeared to comprehend it, with the exception of the manipulator Sindona himself. The prestigious magazine Fortune was so impressed that it focused its keen financial eyes upon his operations. It came to the conclusion that Sindona was worth a startling $450 million. And this is written in 1983, just for some context. The richest man in Italy and one of the richest in Europe. The achievement, more than exceptional, was almost unique, since the man had started from nothing. This is where you see the Jesuits are connected to Sindona here. Sindona's grandfather had been a chicory seller back in Sicily, his father a poor farm worker. Sindona had his first studies with the Jesuits. Sindona had his first studies with the Jesuits, and then at Messina's University, where he became one of its youngest lawyers. He began at once to act for immigrants with interest in America. While busy with them, he sought the friendship. I'm just going to read a little bit more of this page. And then I'm going to go to the next book I have. I'm just going to read some excerpts on Sindona, so you see the financial intrigue that he exerted. So you see that Epstein's connected to Flavio Briatore, who worked at a company, Paramati, which was owned by Michel Sindona outright. And even this Luxury London, even says that Sindona was a mafia-affiliated financier who laundered heroin money for the Gambino crime family. So, you see the intrigue. Epstein was, and this is why, he ultimately died in prison, and the lead FBI investigator, William F. Sweeney Jr., is a devout Catholic who goes to mass with Dolan, and the new head of the Federal Bureau of Prisons that's supposedly investigating how Epstein died in federal prison. On suicide watch, Kathleen Hawks Sawyer was educated by Jesuits at Welling Jesuit College. You can see that's why they had the urgency to cover this up, because there is some serious Vatican connections with Epstein's network. Actually, I'll go to the next. This is from the book Hot Money by R.T. Naylor. This was written in 1987, I believe. So this is on page 51. Sindona's background in Sicily was one of poverty and ambition, and at a time when, despite a vicious campaign of suppression of the mafia by Mussolini, the island remained a joint fiefdom of the mafia in the church, still as it is today. But it was not unknown for priests to be local mafia capos, and more than one priest in recent years has been charged with washing dirty money through a Vatican bank. It was from his bishop what's really interesting about this case was right after this case went down and after they killed Sindona in prison, the Vatican put a Nazi, Herman Abs, on the board of the Institute of Religious Works to supposedly investigate the scandal involving Sindona and the P2 Masons and Roberto Calvi. Literally, Herman Abs Hitler's banker of the Deutsche Bank during the Third Reich, became a good Catholic, became literally, he became an advisor for the Institute of Religious Works in 1983, I believe, after Sindona was killed, or 1984 after Sindona was killed. It was not unknown for priests to be local mafia capos, continues R.T. Naylor. And more than one priest in recent years has been charged with washing dirty money through the Vatican Bank. It was from his bishop that Sindona, then a young tax lawyer, heard the parable of the new worldly success of Amedeo Giannini, founder of what became Bank of America. This is really interesting. I think I've read this before on my channel. But let me give me a second here. If you haven't, because it was Der Spiegel magazine who made the accusation that Pietro Amedeo Giannini, just referenced there in R.T. Naylor's book, R.T. Naylor said Sindona was inspired by Giannini. Let me see here. But Der Spiegel, a German magazine, actually claimed that the Jesuits actually financed Bank of America and are outright owners of it. Give me a second here. Okay, Der Spiegel article. I link this here. You can, if you type this in, or if you search in Aber Manhattan on my search bar in the blog, you can find this. And this is the original German source. If you can read German, you can actually get a PDF of this article in German from the Spiegel website. But you can also translate it into English. You see here, this is what the German magazine Der Spiegel said in 1958. The influence of the Society of Jesus in the American financial world first became apparent 50 years ago when Italian financier A.P. Giannini founded the Bank of California, which is today one of the largest banks in the world under the new name Bank of America. Giannini was an extremely skillful financier who owed his starting capital to the Jesuits and figured as their trust or straw man. I'm going to repeat that. That's a profound statement. Giannini was an extremely skillful financier who owed his starting capital to the Jesuits and figured as their trust or straw man. Today, Bank of America is 51% by the order, being the Jesuit order. It's interesting that Michel Sindona, I just wanted to bring that up. It's interesting that he was inspired by Amedeo Giannini. During the Second World War, Sindona had an opportunity to put his appreciation for things American to practical use. When the American army invaded Sicily, it was with the support of the mafia, Sicilian and American. In one of the most bizarre and portentous chapters of the diplomatic history of the era, the U.S. government in 1946 released Meyer Lansky's business partner, Lucky Luciano, from jail. This was supposed to be in exchange for the assistance in keeping the American waterfront unions in line during the war and in securing the active collaboration of the Sicilian mafia for the invasion of the island, though it has been suggested that it may have had something to do with the large check that the mob allegedly wrote on behalf of the re-election campaign of crime buster Thomas Dewey for the governorship of New York. Continue here. Apart from using the occasion to resurrect the transatlantic heroin trade, the mafia also requested American support for the independence of Sicily. Michel Sindona made himself useful to this dialogue by trading lemons from the mafia-controlled suppliers to the American forces on Sicily in exchange for grain for black market sale. Allegedly, too, he dealt in arms for the partisans fighting for independence. Although the U.S. refused to back the secession attempt, it did support a compromise, regional autonomy under joint auspices of the Christian Democratic Party, the mafia, and the church. And all these three books here also detailed the takedown of Sindona by the Vatican and ultimately how they turned on him after he was arrested. But here's from the book Penny Lanou and Banks We Trust. Sindona's contracts with the Vatican began in 1969. This is page 181. When he became financial advisor to Pope Paul VI, who had known him in Milan. The son of a bankrupt farmer, Sindona had early learned to manipulate a church patronage when, as a young man in Sicily, he used the influence of the Bishop of Messina to acquire a truck to transport suspect goods. After graduating from the University of Messina, which is owned and controlled by the Jesuit father to this day, He wrangled an introduction to the powerful Monsignor Giovanni Montini in Milan, who would later become Pope Paul VI. Montini introduced the smooth-talking Sicilian to his friend Giulio Andretti. This is very interesting because Giulio Andretti, the Italian prime minister, was intimately linked and connected to Father Felix A. Morlian of the Pro-Dio intelligence network. And I have a few videos on my channel on Father Felix Morlian. Morlian, I actually think had more financial intrigue going on than Sindona did himself. We see with such contacts, Sindona soon prospered, buying one bank after another until he assembled a multinational empire with hundreds of millions of dollars. As he had done in his youth in Sicily, he assiduously courted those with power, and with Andretti's Christian Democrats faced election peril from the communists. He was an unstinted contributor as well to a funnel for supporting funds from the CIA. And actually, here's an interesting quote. So, Sindona, the video will go too long if I cover like his arrest and his takedown, how the Vatican turned on him. But the Vatican, or Sindona, interestingly said of Bishop Marcinicus that Marcinicus was put in place by the Vatican. The American, I think he was from Chicago. Marcinicus was American, and the Vatican put in charge of the Institute of Religious Works. But Sindona said Marcinicus was a nobody who had pretensions to become a financier. He thought that because he had a position as a banker, he was a banker 2 weeks at Harvard University lectures, and he thought he had become a banker. That's an interesting quote there. But I just want to bring that up because he has some context. I'll link those sources. So this Flavio Briatore is connected to Epstein, worked at a Paramati, who was owned by Michelle Sindona. Let me see here. So just going back to Briatore's Wikipedia page here, I believe this guy's a billionaire. He started his career as a Italian businessman, started his career as a restaurant manager in the insurance industry. He was convicted in Italy on several fraud charges in the 80s. I saw one of those fraud charges related to Sindona's Paramati company, receiving 2 prison sentences, though the convictions were later extinguished by an amnesty. That's the Catholic Church's influence there. Briatore set up a number of successful Benetton franchises as a fugitive in the Virgin Islands and the United States. And while he was a fugitive in the Virgin Islands, he was hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein. And the governor of the Virgin Islands, Charles Wesley Turnbull, who got him a pardon, is also on the Jeffrey Epstein list. That's seen right here. Charles Wesley Turnbull. And you see here Flavio Briatore. I think he was on page 7. Yeah, right here. He has his name circled on the Epstein list, so which means he's like a special contact. You see here in 1990, he was promoted by Luciano Benetton, who is an Italian billionaire, to manage the Benetton Formula One racing team, which became Renault F1 in 2002. From 2007 to 2010, Flavio Briatore was part owner and chairman of London's football team, the Queen's Park Rangers. And on September 2009, Briatore was forced to resign from the ING Renault F1 team due to his involvement in race fixing at the 2008 Singapore Grand Prix. After the Fédération Internationale IFA, the automobile, conducted its own investigation, Briatore was banned indefinitely from any event sanctioned by the FIA. Check this out, though. Although this ban was later overturned by a Catholic French Tribunal de Grande Instance. That's a Catholic-controlled court. Would you look at that? Let me see here. So he had interesting early connections with Michelle Sindona, and he was also connected to this Luciano Benton, this Italian businessman. This guy's, obviously, I have to do my research into him, but you can figure this guy's connected into the Catholic Church as well. You see here, so I just want to show you the Virgin Islands pardon. She was convicted of multiple fraud charges. You see, in 1984, a court in Bergamo found Catholic Flavio Briatore guilty of various counts of fraud, and he was fined and sentenced to 1 year and 6 months in prison. The sentence was subsequently reduced to 1 year by a court of appeal in 1988. In 1986, in Milan, Briatore was sentenced to 3 years for fraud and conspiracy for his role in a team of confidence tricksters who, over a number of years, set up rigged gambling games using fake playing cards. The judge described these as an elaborate confidence tricks in which victims were invited to dinner and then, quote, ensnared in rigged games that involved the cast of fictional characters and realized the enormous profits for their perpetrators. And all this, and you should check out, like, you can translate these Italian articles from like the Repubblica and other Italian sources that are linked on Wikipedia. Like, it was from an Italian source like this where I found that a Jesuit priest, Father Robert Graham, actually admitted that Father Felix A. Morley of Pro Dio was a CIA agent. You see here, so after an appeal in 1987, the sentence was reduced to 1 year and 1 year and 2 months. So he ended up only getting like sentenced to 1 year for these fraud charges after an initial 3-year sentence. To avoid imprisonment, Briatore ditched Europe and lived in St. Thomas, Virgin Islands, where Jeffrey Epstein was at. He never went to prison. And returned to the EU after both convictions were extinguished by amnesty. And here are the sources. Italian news articles covered this. You look at that. In 2010, a Turin court ordered Briatore rehabilitated, and by Italian criminal which by Italian criminal code results in the extinction of any criminal effect of the conviction. So now he's not even going to have a criminal. Like, his record's going to be wiped. You see here, so during Catholic Briatore's fugitive status, he maintained close relations with Benetton, the Italian billionaire, and opened some Benetton stores in the Virgin Islands. When Benetton opened his first 5 stores in the United States in 1979, he appointed Briatore as director of the group's American operations. Thanks to Benetton's medal of franchising, the chain experienced a brief boom in popularity in the U.S. By 1989, there were 800 Benetton stores. Briatore, having taken a cut of each franchising agreement, became very wealthy. As store owners began to complain of competition from other Benetton stores, the number of stores decreased to 200, and Briatore began to look for new business. We see if there's any other mentions of the Virgin Islands. Yeah, I think that was all the mentions there. Yeah, and this guy's still involved in Formula One after like rigging it, like openly. Like that was part of the charges. Oh, and he created the Billionaire Nightclub IT brand and owns a club in Sardinia, which has since closed. In August 2012, Briatore opened a Billionaire Club in Marbella under the name, along with the Hotel Couture line, Billionaire Italian Culture. In addition to that, he opened Soprani's restaurant in London, Mayfair, London. In 2007, owned 48.9% of the pharmaceutical company Pierre. He also operates a Tucson Beach Club in Lion and Sun, a holiday resort in Kenya. So here's a who's who on Flavio Briatore. So this guy's this guy's like, worth billions of dollars. Like, he openly was rigging Formula One races for Michael Schumacher. You see here, he steered Renault, the F1 company, and Benetton to 7 world championship titles and hired 2 of Formula One's biggest stars, quote, biggest stars, Fernando Alonso and Michael Schumacher. And here's this on the Wikipedia page, even like there was a big, on the 1994 Formula One page here, 1994 cheating controversy. Michael Schumacher comes up all the time. Like, cheating allegations were made in 1994. This is when Briatore was working with Schumacher. On lap 21 of the race, Williams, who was leading the race, made a pit stop with Michael Schumacher and the Benetton close behind. The Benetton pit crew made a very quick stop for Schumacher, getting him out in front of Senna to lead the race. Schumacher went on to win the Grand Prix. What a surprise, after Senna spun out of the race. This sparked speculation that Benetton were using a system to make quicker pit stops. There's been all sorts of, and this comes from, this is sourced, you see here. You see more allegations came up with Schumacher again during the French Grand Prix. Allegations that Benetton was using traction control. Schumacher overtook both of the Williams drivers, Damon Hill and Nigel Mansell, on the tight turn or leading into the first quarter of the race. There are also incidents involving other teams, involving Ferrari and McLaren. Schumacher was made he's involved in this quite a bit. You see, Schumacher illegally overtook this rider Hill here. What was this guy's first name? At the British Grand Prix. You can read the stuff on the screen. So you know, like Schumacher was actually fined like 25K. So this is kind of like the Patriots in the NFL. Like the Patriots were openly caught cheating with the Spygate and the Deflategate. Like Michael Schumacher, from what I could see, is like Tom Brady of F1 racing. That's a good analogy there. Tom Brady is a devout Catholic. I'm not sure if Schumacher is a devout Catholic, but it's interesting that this devout Catholic, Flavio Briatore, is connected to Epstein. It has like all these billionaire nightclubs all over the world. With Schumacher's like a manager essentially. Here he's got like his own F1 car. It looks like at his mansion house. You see, this is the man Flavio Briatore that helped transform Formula One from a petrol head's hobby into the most glamorous sport on the planet. A man who grew Benetton into a global fashion empire before launching his own designer label, Billionaire Couture. So this is the name of his fashion company now, Billionaire Couture. Okay, and he's been married to a few like models and supermodels. He's currently married to Elisabetta Gregortri, 30 years younger than him. But he used to be dating supermodel Naomi Campbell and Heidi Klum. You see, so this is very interesting that this guy's connected, to Jeffrey Epstein. And you see here, I'm not making it up. You can see it on his list right here. He was given a pardon to the Virgin Islands for all of his fraud allegations and the allegations of rigging and fixing F1 matches over in Europe. And he was, pardoned by the French courts and the EU courts, which are Jesuit controlled, just like the U.S. Supreme Court and the Canadian Supreme Court is Jesuit controlled. All the Supreme Courts all over the world are controlled by Jesuit puppet justices, acting like high priests on the court, just like priests. Hey, how's it going, guys? Yeah, I got to look into Schumacher more now, especially with this connection with him to Flavio Briatore, because that's what my buddy said, who is a big F1 like fan. Like he was naming like specific instances of like drivers who would make unexplained, pit stops, and then Michael Schumacher passes right ahead, and he's in charge now. He wins. Just kind of like Tom, like all that kind of shady stuff happens to Tom Brady and the Patriots, all the time. And I did a video on that. Like the Patriots only started winning Super Bowls after the U.S. Patriot Act was signed in 2001 by Jesuit-trained Georgetown professor Veit Din, and the commissioner of the National Football League at this time was the chairman of the board of directors at Jesuit Georgetown University, Paul Tagliabue. But so you see, so I just want to bring that up. So Flavio Briatore is a devout Roman Catholic, like Italian billionaire. Like there's numerous Catholic connections that I've brought up, in previous videos, like Rosa Monckton. Like no one she's been untouched by the alternative media. She has 8 children's charities. Rosa Monckton, devout Catholic, educated by Catholic nuns. Her brother is a British House of Lords member, Lord Christopher Monckton, Knight of Malta. But check what this papist. This came from the Vanity Fair magazine on article on Jeff Epstein from 2003. But this is what the papist Rosa Monckton said about Jeff Epstein. He's very enigmatic, says Rosa Monckton, former CEO of Tiffany & Co. in the UK and a close friend since the 1980s. You think you know him when you peel off another ring of onion skin and there's something else extraordinary underneath. He never reveals his hand. He's a classic iceberg. What you see is not what you get. Look at that. That's what, no one's bringing this up. Rosa Monckton has 8 children's charities, and Jeffrey Epstein was like a child pedophile. Rosa Monckton has even written, I covered this in a video I did on her. Rosa Monckton even wrote an article, and I think it was the Spectator magazine, or like the British Spectator, saying that people with disabilities shouldn't even make minimum wage. They should make less than minimum wage. Like, it's disgusting stuff. And she's supposedly out here like caring for children, with her 8 charities connected to pedophile Jeff Epstein. It's in this article too, where she actually right here, Rosa Monckton recalls telling Epstein that her daughter Dominica, who suffers from Down syndrome, like Rosa Monckton has a special charity for Down syndrome kids, needed son, and that Epstein said Rosa should feel free to bring her to his house in Palm Beach anytime. that being Rosa Moncton's daughter, Dominica. You know, so they don't talk about, like, none of the, you know, there's rarely any coverage out there showing that Epstein's, you know, connected to the Vatican. It's all that Epstein's Jewish. You see, here's Louis Farrakhan. I'm here to separate the good Jews from the satanic Jews. If you type in Epstein Jewish, there's all sorts of stuff on the internet. See the Epstein family tree connections, the Mossad, Jeffrey Epstein, forbidden knowledge, Mossad, Israel, just Jewish business groups connection, Jewish billionaire Jeff Epstein. So they're all hammering in that he's Jewish. This is like a Jewish Zionist plot, which is Jesuit propaganda. If you know the history, the Jesuits actually created the idea of a Jewish conspiracy to take over the world with their Civitica Catholica magazine in the mid 1800s. Like this Jew, Alan Dershowitz, is actually on the Epstein list. Like he does, I forget the victim's name. There's a victim that came out that said Dershowitz raped at a party. And the devout Catholic Opus Dei former FBI director Louis Freeh quoted an independent study and said, "Oh no, Alan Dershowitz did nothing wrong." Same devout Catholic Opus Dei Louis Freeh, who investigated the Jesuit-trained devout Catholic Opus Dei Joe Paterno at Penn State and said, "Oh yeah, Joe Paterno. There's nothing else at Penn State. It was all Sandusky. It was nothing else. It was only Sandusky." Same Louis Freeh. So, you know, like, so it's all like there's no stuff out here connecting Epstein to the Vatican when his Catholic charity was openly donating. His foundation is openly donating like probably millions to the Catholic charities. You can see a photo of him with the Pope, all the overwhelming Catholic connections in his black book that I've been covering, you know, on this channel. You know, it seems to like I've only seen like Johnny Cerrucci, and I've seen like a couple. I don't know if these guys were Adventists or they looked like they had like a Christian ministry going on. I've seen a couple YouTube channels that are Christian ministries cover some of the Catholic connections to Epstein's, but that's it. There's just like a couple YouTube Christian ministries, Johnny Cerrucci, like the Cerrucci team briefs we've been doing, and the stuff I've been doing. Like I haven't seen any other, you know, people connecting Epstein to the Catholic Church and the Jesuits when it's so clear. Like the Black Book is an allegory to the Jesuit International, like the Black Pope. Just like when Calvi was killed during the P2 scandal, Roberto Calvi supposedly hung himself at Blackfriars Bridge. Like, come on. Oh, absolutely, yeah. Like, there's a special, like, there's a special, there's actually a papal bull that was written that said that Jews like will be enslaved like eternally by the Catholic Church. Cum nimis absurdum. And like, let me. Oh shoot! I'll have to. Some of my books fell off the shelf there, but I have this book on archive.org. I just want to show you the physical, but this is a book everyone should read, a great historical book that shows how the Jews have been treated. It shows how the Catholic Church has treated the Jews over, you know, like this goes, you know, all the way back. Like the church blamed the Jews for the Black Plague, for instance. Like, are you kidding me? You know, this is a very scholarly book. David Kurtzer is a history professor. The Popes Against the Jews. This was written in 2000. Yeah, 2001. Another very good. Let me show you. So I'll show you. I'm just going to show you some other good links to show you the Catholic anti-Semitism. Leo H. Lehman actually wrote an article in the Converted Catholic magazine, which I got a pamphlet of through a interlibrary loan request, called "How the Popes Treated the Jews." Yeah, right here. "How the Popes Treated the Jews." This is by Leo Lehman. And actually, you should read I'll show you another. So this is another great article here in the Catholic Church. I got another Leo Lehman article attached to this from the Converted Catholic magazine titled "The Catholic Church in Hitler's Mein Kampf." You should read this article here, "How the Popes Treated the Jews." You know, alongside, you know, David Kurtzer's book, "The Popes Against the Jews." And there's one other one I recommend here. Oh, actually, this one's really good here. The Catholic Church and the Jews in Argentina. You'll see, like, the Jesuits. Came from a University of Nebraska press. Like, the Jesuits were the biggest anti-Semites in Argentina. Like, what a surprise! They're the biggest anti-Semites everywhere. Like, it's all in this book. If you read this book, you see the Jesuits were the biggest anti-Semites in Argentina. I'm not making it up. I'm just going to show you. J.J. Murphy also wrote, and actually you saw The Popes Against the Jews was up on the last screen. He wrote an article here. This was also reprinted in the Converted Catholic magazine, but this ended up in a humanist magazine from 1944 called Catholic Anti-Semitism, here by J.J. Murphy. I recommend you. There's some like historical sources you can see, and you can see like this. Like we covered this on one of the Cerrucci team briefs. How like Russia Today had this Catholic ex-CIA agent on. I forget his name, but he had like I think it was Garibaldi. He had this Italian Catholic name. And he was saying how Epstein was like a servant of like the wicked Zionist Jews who are trying to blackmail like all American politicians. Which is a joke. And with these books in the chat, these are the ones I was reading out of for Michelle Sindona, The Vatican Billions, Hot Money and Politics of Debt, R.T. Naylor, and In Banks We Trust by Penny Lernoux. I'll link those. Absolutely, Argentina is where that's where Ante Pavlich escaped to as well. He went down to Argentina. Klaus Barbie ended up in Argentina. Great point. Good point. Like there definitely are. Like there are. I'm not. It's naive to say that there's no. Evil. Like Zion. There are certain. Jews that are serving you could say are definitely evil, but they're serving the Pope. Like they're not controlling the world. Israel has been in existence for 45 years as a country. The Vatican, the Catholic Church has been in existence for over like 1,000 years. Like there's no comparison. But like all of the court Jews and the Hof Judans, like the Rothschilds. Like I saw. Let me see here. I was glad to see that this got a lot of upvotes in the Reddit conspiracy thread, because usually there's just a bunch of anti-Semitism and anti-Jewish stuff that clogs the Reddit anti-Semitism thread. But I got this one. I showed a post like in the Jewish Encyclopedia, like the Rothschilds are referred to as the guardians of the papal treasure. Yeah, this is the post here. Looks like it was downvoted a little bit. This had at one point over 25 upvotes. You see here, the Rothschilds are the guardians of the papal treasure, according to the official Jewish Encyclopedia. This is a quote from the official Jewish Encyclopedia. It is a somewhat curious sequel to attempt to set up a Catholic competitor to the Rothschilds. At the present time, the latter are the guardians of the papal treasure. End quote. If you watch my videos on Father Morley's of pro-Jews affiliation in America, you'd see that his Catholic intelligence organization had many prominent papal court Jews on the board of directors. They're subservient to him in the Catholic Church. Yeah, definitely. I think the solution is education and information. That's like the first solution, is to inform people. And like there is kind of like, I don't know, I do take this position that there is kind of in today's day and age, like, no excuse to not be informed. It's like, well, unless you don't have an internet connection. Like if you have an internet connection, like all the information you could ever dream of is out there. Like just on this website here, like archive.org, like has, like they even say, I think they have like 50 billion archives, like on their website. Like 300. Look at this, like 380 billion web archives on this one website. Like this is just one archive site. The amount of information out there, is, it's kind of mind blowing just to think about. You can spend lifetimes and lifetimes just reading through books on this just one website. So all this stuff is out there for free. That's been part of what I've been trying to do, is uploading a lot of books to this website so people can read them for free. But that's the solution. Is ultimately that's the first step, is to educate ourselves to see how we're being played. Yeah, absolutely. And this is the position of the psychiatrist Thomas Schatz. He believes everyone has like a God-given responsibility or Yeah, everyone has a God-given responsibility for their own life, and they're responsible. It's your responsibility to inform yourself. And that's probably how the control system gets perpetuated, because people are expecting the watered down school curriculum that they're attending to actually inform them on how the world works. Like, they're expecting to be informed by school. Like, they're expecting just that, oh, since I have a degree now, like, I know how things work. But that's not how it goes. You have to take it upon yourself to self-educate. Yeah, thanks for everyone for watching. Peace. Yeah, absolutely. And it is the black nobility. The black nobility, I covered that in the last video. Marie Hasberg and Prince Darrenberg are connected to Jeffrey Epstein's black book list, and they are black nobility. But yeah, I think that's all for this one, YouTube. Peace and love, and Namnas. All roads lead to Rome. There's another connection to Jeffrey Epstein's black book. Flavio Briatore. This guy has escaped numerous fraud charges and sought asylum in the U.S. Virgin Islands by from Governor Charles Wesley Turnbull, who is also on the Jeffrey Epstein black book list. It makes you think that Epstein, had a role to play in Catholic Flavio Briatore finding asylum in the Virgin Islands. But that's all for this one, YouTube. Peace and love. I'll catch you on the next one. I think we're going to do a Sarucci team brief on Friday morning. So I'll see you guys then. All the best.